Mic check. Hello and good evening to all of you. Good evening and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh, and in this video we shall discuss the current affairs and Gazette magazine for today, that is 1st of November 2021. Good evening Amlan, good evening Bhavani, how are you people? How was your weekend? I hope that you did revise the content of the last week, right? Did you? That's the important question that I have for you all. Hi Bhavani. I hope that you revise the content of the last week. That becomes very important. All right. So let's begin the discussion for today. Okay, today we have got some very interesting articles because COP26 is about to begin, and we also had the G20 summit in Italy. That was the reason that a lot of new developments have come up, and that is the place where we have put our focus on for today's news, and some very interesting editorials as well. All right, good evening Vikas, good evening Uday, good to have you. All right, let's start. So today we have some really interesting snapshots for you. For the first one is on rise in farmer suicides, right? This has been presented by NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau. The second one is G20 Summit 2021. So the general declarations that have happened we will discuss here, but soon we will also have one feature on how does this impact India, right? Becomes very important. G20 Summit every year becomes very critical for India's future, right? So this is the second one, and the third one is regarding a new development from the Ministry of Energy Resources. So some amendments have been suggested in the Energy Conservation Act, right? We will understand what are the amendments and what is the reason for that. All right. This day in history dedicated to Queen's Proclamation 1858. If you know a little bit of history, you would be able to relate to what it was. 1858 Queen's Proclamation. Featured news for today is on emission gap report, a very, very important report, right? Now these, see, the point at which these reports are getting released becomes very important and critical, because just in a couple of, in fact today itself it started, the COP26 started just today itself, and these are the kind of report on which a lot of stakeholdership and their decisions will be based on. So emission gap report by United Nations Environment Program, and we also discussed one important report, that was the production gap report by UNEP again. So these two important reports along with G2 summit lead to what COP26 will be about. So today we will study the emission gap report, very, very important report considering the future of environment, future of earth. This is at 6:45 p.m. live, the featured news for today. Very interesting report. All right. So 100 pages of report summarized to you in 15 minutes. Image of the day is on National Unity Day. It was not today, it was yesterday. So we will understand what is this context. Can you name the personality on whom this National Unity Day was initially formed? Who is the personality on whom it was this was initiated? Anybody? All right, terms and concepts for today. The first one is annual migration of birds, Central Asian flyway, the one which passes through India. The second one is on the LR bomb, long range bomb. We will understand what this is. And the third one is Hydrosource. What is Hydrosource? Fourth one is flash flood guidance system, which has been established. So 4 new terms for you. Editorials for today are one, a need for new Ministry of Energy. What is the need for a Ministry of Energy? We have Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Renewable Energy Resources, and we don't have a Ministry of Energy. So what is the requirement? All right. The second one is mismatch between the youth population, their graduation degrees and employability in the country. And the third editorial is on nutrition in the schools, right? So through 3 important editorials and lot of opinions, valuable opinions through them. Case study of the day is about cycling in the city, right? So let's start discussing the articles one by one. All right. Absolutely, OSB is correct, Bhabani is correct. We are talking of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. All right. So let's begin the discussion. See, there has been an increase in suicides in the country, right? This is something that is not very good for our country. This is a drastic step people take, and there's been a request to decriminalize an act like suicide, right? So earlier when people would commit suicides, they would be also charged, if at all they save their lives, they would still be charged, and they would be kept under not only medical care but police care as well, right, somewhere or the other, because people ought not take their lives. That was the thing earlier, but slowly and steadily reformations have started to come into this genre of things, and suicides slowly gets decriminalized. But still we have seen a rise in the number of suicides. In fact, India has seen 1.53 lakh suicides in the last year, and there are two important categories in which I would like to focus. One is the daily wage earner and the second is students. There has been a drastic increase in student suicide, right? And one important reason could be the increased amount of pressure, increased amount of burden on the student. Why? Because in Corona times schools were not working, not functional, the exams were not happening, and because of that there's increased burden of the economy and the family setup for the student, and they commit a drastic step. So there has been a huge increase in the student rate of suicide. However, if you consider the total number of suicides, in that daily wage earner is the one who stands the foremost, right? Not a very good thing. 25%, around 25% of people who commit suicide in the last year committed are daily wage earners, and primarily those people who are employed in agricultural fields, right, rural areas, those are the ones. We have been speaking of increase in employment, right? If you have been a part of the Gazette discussion, the survey, the NSSO survey, it always talks about that there has been an increase in employment in rural areas, increase in female participation of employment. But you see, if there is increase in female participation, why do we see this kind of suicide, right? So this comes as a very, very important, relevant question. All right. Now the effective total number of farmer suicides, the daily wage earner suicides, has also increased. That is as much as 38,000 people committing suicides, and this is the total number that has been reported, right? Reported. So the numbers, actual numbers, will be far more than this, right? Moving ahead to another thing, that is, which are the states where you see increase in farmer suicides? So the state which tops the list in the total number of farmer suicides is Maharashtra, and the ones which come just next to it are Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and you should be able to understand why. These are the places where there is increased amount of water stress. These are the places in the interiors where you would see the increased role of money lenders, because microfinance institutions would not be able to reach. Even if they are able to reach, they are not as effective, they are not able to provide quick loans. So we have done enough number of articles telling what is the reason that farmers or daily wage earners commit suicide. See, the kind of loans that they take are divided in two segments. One is the loan on which they try to earn their daily wage or do the agricultural activity. What kind? For example, for inputs, for agricultural input, they would take loans. But there is another kind in which they would take loans, but only for day-to-day consumption. So, for example, there is a family function, FF, family function. If there is somebody's death, if there is a marriage, right? So these are the consumption expenditure for which they would take loan from money lender. But for taking credit for farm input, right, they would take it from the microfinance institutions like banks, right, NBFCs and banks. So they would be able to return maybe some component of this, but the other component always remains with them as a debt, causing stress, farmer distress, and then later suicides as well. And these number of states, do remember why? Because these are the places where you see increased amount of farm lending, and there is increased amount of water stress as well, right? Drought prone areas, absolutely correct, right? And yet the agricultural production in these areas is not in sync with the kind of water prevalent here, right? We still try to cultivate sugarcane, right? So sugarcane was a question, right, which is the most water engulfing crop amongst the mentions. It was the question in the pre-exam, right? So we keep discussing all that, it comes up every time, every now and then, and this is where you will be able to apply your common sense and mark the correct answer in exam, right? So see, it has clearly mentioned that the highest percentage rise I would like to read that statement. Suicides in India rose 10% from 2019. They rose 10%, and they became all-time high of 1.5 lakh, 1,53,000 in 2020. With student suicides seeing the highest percentage increase, that is 20+%. So you can well imagine what is the kind of stress we all are going through. You are going through. I can empathize with you. I can understand. Right, the delay in exam, end moment delay in the pre-exam, and just now, yes, last Friday we had the release of the pre-exam results. Now, if you appeared in the exam, you qualified, great, study for the main exam. If you did not qualify, don't you worry, because the topper for the next year is also getting made right now, right? The topper is already studying, and they are already in the race, and so are you, right? So it is no more a delay for anybody. It is not a delayed start, and in fact for the next year as well, the topper gets framed right now. Some of the students who get through are already working in some or the other services, right? So they have some or the other, they have a running start. They've already got some kick start with them. So all you got to do is be consistent with your work. Next year around the same time, you might as well get through the pre-exam, and you will have only 2 to 3 months to prepare. So this is where all you are doing today that is going to help you, right? So do not worry about all these kind of stats data. This is only for representation purposes, only for you to write. You will not be disturbed, perturbed about all these things, right? However, this also demonstrates the overall situation of the youngsters in our country and economy, right? We will also discuss one of the editorials on the kind of stress that youth has, right? So, all right, Digvijay Sharma asks, is self-help group, can it be useful in agricultural financing? Yes, absolutely, why not? Self-help group also provides finance, but they do not provide the kind of finance which is exploitatory, right? Because self-help groups, they provide finance amongst the money collected amongst them only, right? So this is not exploitatory in nature. This is like, one person, one of these people, all of them will have a pool of 10 rupees each. So suppose there are 6 people, they collected 60, one of them needs 30 rupees, they will take it from them and then return it back, right? So this is not exploitatory in nature primarily. All right. Snapshot 2 is on G20 summit that was held in Italy. All right. So this summit becomes important because most of the countries which are responsible for emission, greenhouse gas emission, belong to G20 group. These are the group of 20 countries, 20 leading economies which have emerging economies or already doing well economies, right? So as much as 80% of emissions around the world are from G20 countries. So in case they have some binding agenda for how much they want to, how much greenhouse gas they want to release in the atmosphere, this is going to impact the world as well, as a whole. So therefore, this becomes very important. So just remember, G20 and climate, you relate with 80% of global warming gases, right? So this was held just before the Glasgow COP26, which is highly awaited. Majorly because of the assessment report AR6 that we discussed, and it spoke of code red for humanity, right? So therefore times become very important right now. So what has it discussed? It has discussed some important features. I'd like to discuss in short here, and soon we will have one feature article on how it will impact India in specific. So first of all, climate change. See, let me just give an overview of the 4-5 places where it spoke of. Climate change, taxation, vaccines, global economy, and development aid. So these are the 5 places. Now, what did it speak about climate change? Rhetoric. You understand what is rhetoric? Rhetoric means बार बार बोलते रहो. You speak about it all the time, and there is nothing to be spoken later, right? But they will not be acting on it, right? So I'm being a little cynical here, I'm being a little sarcastic, but this is the reality. So they spoke of limiting the global warming up to 1.5 degrees Celsius. They spoke that around by the mid of century, there will be net zero carbon emissions, right? They said that they will stop funding the dark kind of fuel, the fuel that is dirty in nature, coal plants. They said that they will mobilize $100 billion for funding. But I will disprove each of them, what they have done or what they are going to do in the feature news for today. Each of them. When they say that they will limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, at current pace, we are going to have 2.7 degree warming by the end of century. What are you talking about limiting up to 1.5 degrees Celsius? We have already touched almost 1 degree Celsius of global warming to pre-industrial times already. So half a degree increase we are talking of, but we are not reducing that kind of energy consumption, right? If we talk of the emission gap report, if we talk of the production gap report, all of them point that we are nowhere close to reaching 1.5 degree, right? None of the countries have even pledged, but yet they have spoken all this, right? So what will you put in your answers? What I am saying or what is written here? You will put what is written here. But when it comes to criticism, you will write what I am saying, right? So this is point number one. The second is taxation. All of the countries G20 have agreed that they will have a minimum 15% taxation regime starting from 2022-23 for those kind of corporates which are trying to have BE base erosion. So for BE and profit sharing, BEPS mechanism, they will have a minimum 15% taxation for all the corporates who are trying to evade taxes. This is point number two. For vaccinations, the idea has been to vaccinate at least 40% of global population by the end of 2021, and next year 70% of global population. This is what they have said. India has also said that India wants to resolve to give 5 billion doses of vaccinations, right? So of the vaccines, right? So this is about vaccination. Global economy, 2-3 things have crippled the global economy right now. One is the energy prices and the second one is supply chain. So all these unions want that global supply chain remains robust, energy prices come down, but who works for it is different question, right? Some of the members here only are not working towards it, right? You see country like China, you see Russia, they're not working towards energy prices. So, but anyhow, this is what is the rhetoric. This is what they have spoken. All right. Development aid, $100 billion. Where is it coming from? Have they released it ever till now? No. Anyhow, the next one is special drawing rights. Now, IMF had come in the aid and it said that it would release the special drawing rights. The percentage in which people deposited some money, it will give a proportion back to them so that they are able to tide through the COVID times, right? So this is what are the 5 major developments. You will be putting your answer in exactly this format. You will be putting answer on G20 summit exactly in the same format if the question is about what was the summit about. But if you are asked to analyze, you will be putting the same headings, but you will be analyzing it. You will be putting your perspective, which is not your perspective, the perspective, important perspective, which is constructive yet critical of the approach, right? So what are those? For example, net zero deadlines. The countries have not declared, many countries have not declared net zero deadlines. This is one of the issues. Another issue is domestic commitments. The countries, even if they have declared the net zero stand of their own, right, the different fragments, which industry, how much reduction, it has not been declared, right? So pathways to goals is incomplete, and it seems that they will end up reaching, 2.7 degrees Celsius rise of the whole earth by the end of the century. Okay. All right. You there with me? You guys there? If you're there, you like the initiative, all you got to do is press the thumb button, right, the like button. Okay, the third snapshot is on amendments to Energy Conservation Act. This has been initiated by Ministry of Power, and since the ministry itself has initiated this amendment, it will most probably get executed in the parliament. So what does it want? It wants a couple of important things. The first thing it wants is that there should be a minimum share or quantum of renewable energy in power purchase agreements. So this is very important, minimum share of renewable energy. This is one. The second one it says is that there should be a mechanism for promotion of green hydrogen, right? And along with that it says that there should be a mechanism for carbon purchase, right? So carbon saving certificate mechanism between countries, right? So there was something called as PAT, perform, achieve and trade. This was a mechanism for the Indian industry, which are able to have increased amount of decreased amount of carbon usage. If at all they are utilizing renewable energy, they can have these carbon credits, right? These are the credits that they have in case they have utilized lesser carbon than required. And when they have this carbon credit, they will be able to trade it with somebody else, right? And gain that amount of money. So suppose they have they were to spend 10 units of carbon and they spent only 8 units, right? 2 units were left with them. So they will gain carbon credit for 2 units of not using of carbon. Good for them. And for 2 units, these 2 units, they will also get finances through PAT mechanism, right? So this is what is the mechanism that has also been talked about here, right? They are also speaking about sustainable habitat so that there is more energy efficiency. Okay, so right now what do we see? We see homes with not only fans but coolers and air conditioners, and same homes in winters will be using heaters and geysers. So why cannot we have better home efficiency so that energy consumption is decreased? It is possible, right? So these are the kind of changes in the act that the ministry has proposed. Okay, so adoption of clean technology, carbon credit and carbon market, right? So these are the keywords that you will be using in your answer: carbon credit, carbon market and clean technology. Okay, all right. Okay, moving ahead. This day in history. This day in history is dedicated to Queen's Proclamation. What is it about? This is the proclamation that was revealed by the Governor General Lord Canning in 1858, 1 November 1858, right, in a Grand Darbar in Allahabad. So what did it speak of? It spoke of giving perpetual support to the native princes and non-intervention of Britishers in the matters of religious beliefs and worship of the Indians, right? So this is what the Queen Proclamations was about, signed on November 1, 1858. All right. All right. There were certain reasons for which the proclamation was revealed to everybody. One was that the princes would be free to adopt their heirs. That means, you remember Rani Lakshmibai and why she fought this 1857 war, right? So that her heir, he was not being given the throne, right? So this is one reason. And the second reason was religious belief, in which the Britishers probably had intervened, right? So these are the important places where they said we will not touch those sensitive points of Indians, right? So very strategically defined. All right. Feature news for today is on emission gap report. We will understand what is the significance of this report, right? We will also understand one important thing: what is carbon intensity, reduction of carbon intensity. We are talking of carbon intensity, energy intensity. So is it equivalent to the net reduction of carbon consumption? No, it is not. Carbon intensity, right, is different, is far different from the effective reduction of carbon. So we will not only understand that, we will also understand what is this emission gap report stating about the present level of emissions in the country, what is the future because of this, and not only that, we will also understand what is the way out, what are the various countries doing here, right? So a very important report. With the help of some illustrations and graph, I will be able to explain to you what is happening around. Okay, moving ahead to image of the day, we have dedicated to National Unity Day. This has been dedicated to, as you all rightly said, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He was the first Home Minister, also Deputy Prime Minister of our country, and he was the one who was chiefly responsible for integration of princely states, right? So he was also called as the Iron Man of India. OSB rightly mentioned about it, right? And so this is what National Unity Day is about. It was not today, it was yesterday, right? 31st October every year. Okay, and Digvijay Sharma says Doctrine of Lapse. Absolutely, Doctrine of Lapse is the one that relates to the years. Okay, all right. So this is how you will be able to revise a little bit of your history and other subjects as well. All I would say that when you come across a thing like this, just refer back to your history or polity or economy books and get back to the foundations fundamentals, right? It will get revised immediately. If you do not know the foundations fundamental, even then just search of it on internet. So at least that thing also gets covered in some way or the other, and you will see that these are the ways in which questions will come up in the exam also, right? All right, terms and concepts. The first term is on Central Asian Flyway. Now this Central Asian Flyway is one of the 9 flyways through which migration of these birds, flora, fauna happens around the world, right? So many of these organisms, they migrate from the colder polar areas to the warmer areas, right? So that they are able to roost, right? That means so that they are able to have their babies, children, eggs, and when the season is right, they also go back, right? So this is one of the prime reasons. They are also able to sustain themselves because of the better climate at the warmer areas, right? So this is one of the important ways, and this is the shortest route amongst the nine of these flyways, right? So as I mentioned, it is a flyway. See, migration happens on foot also for animals. But since this is having on flyways, we are talking chiefly of birds. So these birds would migrate and they would cross Himalayas, right? So 9 kilometers above the ground level they would be flying, and they would cross Himalayas, enter India, and see they would roost and settle at some important places, right? I'm pointing at northeast, right? Example is Nagaland, right? They also pass through places in Delhi and places in Gujarat, and we have discussed those places where the government has declared these places as conservation reserves, so that their habitats, not only these species are preserved, the habitat is also preserved, right? So that their poaching, the encroachment of the place does not happen. So they have gone as much as at Gulf of Mannar, okay? The Bhitrekarnika National Park also in Odisha is an important site for it, right? So this is the update. The second one is India's first indigenous long range bomb, LR bomb. Now this is a bomb through which Indian fighter planes may be able to fire as much as 100 to 150 kilometers distance apart, right? So even when India is in its border, right, border territory, and the fighter wants to divert, maneuver and get inside the territory again, it can do that, but it will be able to fire for as much as 100 to 150 kilometers. So it was test fired by Sukhoi 30 aircraft, and this aircraft is a Russian aircraft. India has purchased it. So this is the update about LR bombs, right? So we will quickly get on to the next one. The next term is Hydrosource. What is Hydrosource? So this stands for hydrological status and outlook systems. What does it do? Now, can you imagine a system where the place, you know, the satellite survey system and GIS completely tells us what is the level of water at one place, right? We are talking of the water which is stored inside the ground and at surface. What is the level of water stress or the availability of water? So this technology is going to measure the same for all the places around the country, and WMO has initiated this mechanism. Now it is present at many places, right? What is the availability of water and how much water can be exploited, but not at all the places in our country. So this is also going to help us to understand how much groundwater can we utilize, right? What is the level of groundwater at some other places, right? So this is the way through which we are able to understand the conservation status and the future of that particular land area, right? So do remember Hydrosource, right? So this becomes very important for us, because we will be using these kind of terms while writing answers, no, right? This can itself become a point, right? So this, wherever we talk of agricultural reforms, just put this point across: use of hydrological status, Hydrosource, right, by WMO, technology intervention for well-being of the agricultural systems, is it not, right? So this is how you can utilize them, right? The fourth one is flash flood guidance system. This becomes very important because India is one place where flash floods have started to increase. Flash floods are the sudden floods that happen because of increased amount of intensity of rainfall suddenly at some place, right? And because of this, floods seem to happen suddenly, and not only that, it also results in a huge anthropogenic disaster, right? This can happen in urban areas. This can also happen in places which have forest and mountainous landscape, right? So how in urban areas? See, it is majorly about planning. This is what I understand. If you have planned an area without considering the landscape, suppose this is a trough, right? Suppose this is a lowland, right? It was a lake earlier and it dried up. Instead of rejuvenating this lake, instead of having trees and plantation so that there may be more water recharge here, what we are doing is constructing buildings. So during the times when there is sudden rain in the rainy season, all this gets filled up with water, and this is what is also a part of flash floods, urban floods. Not only here, you would be able to see these kind of floods in mountainous areas, right, where there is people say na badal fatta, so that also results in flash floods, right? So this is it. Moving ahead, so a flash flood guidance system has been developed, which is going to aid us to understand the probable spots of flash floods, which are also going to aid people to be able to secure themselves just at the time of flash floods, right? So the flash floods are something that happens suddenly. They do not give us a huge amount of time so that we can shift out of the place. But these kind of early detection capabilities will definitely help us, right? So we are talking of World Meteorological Organization Flood Forecasting Initiative, all right? So see, disaster management, you will be able to represent this there. You'll also be able to put this in a good kind of technological advancements. These keywords become important for you to go ahead. Okay, so let's go on to the editorials now very quickly. Okay, so the first editorial is on India and the need for a Ministry of Energy. Are you guys there? Are you guys there? If you're watching, I would like you to just put a like button, right? A lot of effort is put in the background and in the foreground so that we are able to help you provide daily updates. Now, all these 3 editorials are from today's newspaper, 2 from Indian Express and 1 from The Hindu. We'll discuss them in a couple of minutes, right? 1.5, 2 minutes each of them. And if you think this deserves some kind of praise, just put a thumbs up button, right? So we will proceed ahead now. Alright, and what is most important is when opinions are discussed, these are opinions of people who are chairperson of important organization, right? So this has been written by a chairperson of an NGO in the field of energy resources. So you got to note down these keywords. These are also not my opinions, right? This becomes very important because you will be reflecting some of the good critical points from here into your exam paper. And not only there, this will also become a part of your thought process, right? Jayashree, Bhabani, Amlan, right? Okay. OSB also says concrete all over. Yes, absolutely. In Mumbai, concrete landscapes, concrete jungles and flash floods. Okay. So the first editorial talks about need for Ministry of Energy. See, India has got a Ministry of Power. India has got a Ministry of Coal Resources. India has got a Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Resources. India has also got a Ministry of Petroleum. But we do not have a Ministry of Energy. Ever imagine that, right? We have individual ministries, but we do not have one unified ministry, right? Unified means integration. Unified means if there is a shortcoming in the supply chain, they will handle it. Somebody will be held accountable. See here, nobody's responsibility, nobody's accountability. But if you are holding somebody accountable, for example, a particular ministry, they are the one who will be answerable. So what has happened? This is what the editorial discussed. Today's coal shortage in the country is because coal ministry has to be held accountable and responsible. Why? They did not have enough coal in these times of rainy season. Okay, we are holding them accountable, Coal India Limited. But is there accountability 100%? No. Some of it also resides with Ministry of Power. They were told to purchase some amount of coal, right, and keep them in reserve. They did not do it. They did not do it. So they are also held accountable. But why did they not purchase this amount of coal in advance? Because the distribution companies did not give them money enough. See that? So they are also held accountable. But are they the ones who are not giving the money? When they are themselves not receiving money from the state governments are also accountable. See, so whole supply chain is full of inefficiency, right? And therefore, can we have one Ministry of Energy which can coordinate all these activities? This is the point that the editorial is making, right? We also had a Ministry of Energy around 3 to 4 decades back, but now it does not exist. So a Ministry of Energy will be able to cater to structural lacunae, right? These kind of shortcomings, structural shortcomings where there is a supply demand gap and still people are not able to acquire coal, right? Not only that, we will be able to stop these kind of issues that happen. Not only that, what about the green ambitions of the country? India wants to achieve status where we are reducing the consumption of conventional energy, conventional coal, conventional petroleum, natural gases. So this ministry is going to coordinate all these activities, right? This is the idea, right? So right now, whenever whenever there is agenda of cricket matches and India loses against Pakistan, there's a huge hue and cry against the cricketers. But what about hue and cry when we are talking of issues of hunger, when India falls behind Pakistan in rankings? Do we also hold the politicians accountable? Similarly, do we hold the politicians accountable when there is energy shortage in the country? Who has committed this? Who was responsible? See, state distribution companies or state governments are ensuring that the electricity is sold at subsidized rates. Why? Because of populist demands, because the government does not want to lose support of people. See, but nobody is accounting them when there is such a shortfall in the country. Nobody. No, people are not even aware. So this is where it says that the execution of energy strategy is nothing in the country. Niti Aayog has given a structural roadmap, but there is no execution body. This ministry might do that job. See, now you might ask me where to put this kind of answer, right? Where to put this kind of opinion? Wherever there is a question on energy shortage, energy reforms, electricity reforms, 2 to 3 points you will have straight from here, straight from this discussion, right? And with examples also. Okay, okay. So now अभी बहुत ज्ञान मिलने वाला है. 4 words, note that down very clearly. Energy independence, energy security, energy efficiency and green energy. Okay, all right. So the 4 of them, see, Amlan says I'm looking a little less energetic. Okay, all right, let me be more energetic. The 4 important ज्ञान यहाँ पर जो मिल रहा है ना, this ज्ञान is energy independence. India needs to be not only energy independent, that means independent of outside. India also needs to be energy secure. That means each of these sectors must receive their energy, right? This is important because each of these sectors, coal ministry, power ministry, distribution company, state, we should not be only energy independent of outside, we should also be able to receive this kind of energy, right? And also the end consumer, they also should be able to get it. So this is energy security at viable prices. Energy efficiency is the 3rd one. That means that we should be able to give energy which is at low cost, right? The production of energy should be at efficient levels and it should be green in nature. So these are the 4 important things mentioned in the editorial itself. It also says that this kind of Ministry of Energy, if it cannot get formed, fine, form a department under the Prime Minister so that they are able to coordinate all these activities, right? So this becomes important for the future. See, if India does a reform like this, it will also reflect in the investor sentiment, investor confidence, and private sector has already vouched. Reliance, Adani, Tata Power, the editorial itself says Reliance billions of dollars, Adani billions of dollars, right? $70 billion, $10 billion about in the next coming few years. They have vouched for it that they will be using in clean energy. So if the government has a better strategy, there are investors already waiting for it. All right. In fact, America is one of them which is keenly looking at participating in renewable energy in the country. The second one is mismatch between India's graduate aspirations and job availability. See, many of us are graduates, right, who are watching this video and who are preparing for the exams. But the person who has written the article, he says that he conducted a survey in Delhi University and he found out that many people, many students who were studying in the university, they were from villages, small towns. They could be first generation of college goers from their home, first generation. Before them, nobody had gone to college, right? Many of them from farming families with less of family income. So this is the status, but still there is an increased aspiration amongst students, amongst the parents of those students, right? They want them to get better jobs which can give them government government postings, government jobs, right? But and this is also aided because of increase in number of seats in colleges, increase in number of seats. So this is a good point. However, are we able to employ them? No, that is not true. Even if there is employment, now the system has come where there is a contractual employment, there is gig employment, right? So a contractual worker, and this is where the employment finishes, no permanent benefits for anybody. So these are the times when we see lesser productivity in the kind of employment that the government is providing, right? And gross enrollment ratio, this has definitely improved. What is GER? Gross enrollment ratio is the ratio of the students who are already as a student, right, in the age we are talking of higher education, 18 to 23, right, and the total number of students who are total number of people in this age. So number of students who are in this age bracket, who are in the colleges, and total number. This is right now 27, and this is remarkably high. This is a very good thing. That means it indicates the aspirations of student to go for further education, to go for higher education, to go for better incomes, better employment, their parents' aspirations, but they are not getting good jobs. That is the problem. Who is responsible here? See, right now the youth is dissatisfied, they are disgruntled because they have to go through extra studies, right? Why did not this kind of teaching happen in your colleges? That is my question. That is my question to myself as well when I was studying. Why did I not get this kind of vocational training? If my vocation was to, for example, get into civil services or start teaching, why did not I get this training earlier? Vocational training right now is separate from higher education. After people complete, then they go for vocational education for half a year, year, 2, 3, whatever number, and then they get this employment. So there is a gap between the education, skills, and getting the job. There is something called as employability. Employability in our country, the industry always says, is less. and that is why these kind of vocational trainings. Presently India has got 15,000 plus ITIs, industrial training institutes, and still the youth are not able to get the sufficient amount of training, right? So this is where the editorial concludes, saying that there ought to be a requirement of fulfilling the gaps for the youth education, right? So this is the editorial, and I'm sure that many of us are able to relate to it, right? We have gone through this. All right. Okay. All right. Boost to energy. All right. The third editorial for today is on nutrition at the school levels. It says that there's a triple burden on school children. What are the triple burden? The first burden is that of undernutrition. The second one is of overweight, and the third one is deficiency in micronutrients, special nutrients like iron, zinc, calcium, and some vitamins, right? All of them existing together leads to malnutrition for the school going children, right? And during COVID times, when students could not even go to schools, what happened to midday meal programs? It got stuck down in between, right? So childhood and adolescence, these are the two important ages where the child grows phenomenally, physically, mentally, emotionally, in many perspectives. So childhood, the editorial says that there is a humongous growth in the bones, in the growth of muscles, in the growth of height of child. And adolescence, this is the age when the child grows in many of their emotional traits, in hormones, right? So there is a complete development and complete evolution of personality. These are the times when a child would need nutrition, better nutrition standards, right? But during times of COVID, when child was isolated, when urban child was also isolated, there would be different practices of eating food, right? Leave apart the rural child who would not be given, the rural, care that was usually given under institutional mechanisms. So this would result in further nutritional, lagging of nutritional abilities of the children, right? What is required is to have diversity of the kind of food that we give to small children. So this is one. The other one, it says, is that one should be able to maintain ideal body weight. See, some important parameters: ideal body weight, regular physical activity, adequate water intake with low screen time, right? And adequate sleep as well. Now this is where I am asking you, what are you doing? Are you maintaining ideal body weight, regular physical exercise? Are you able to do it? Are you able to drink 2 to 3 liters of water every day with adequate sleep, 7 to 8 hours, and low screen time? Although I know many of you are not adolescents, but this stands true for each of us. So this becomes important for small children also, and this is where Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman Yojana, PM Poshan Abhiyan, this becomes important, right? Because it tries to aid by giving proper nutrition to small children, school going children, and preschool children as well, right? So Bal Vatikas are the places where small children will be given food, some 450 kilocalorie of energy, some amount of protein at primary levels, and at upper primary children also, right? So this is the PM Poshan Abhiyan, right? We also studied in case studies PM Poshan Vatikas. Poshan Vatikas are the places in school where the government is trying to ensure that we have some plantation of nutritious crops. All right. So moving ahead to the last part of the discussion today, and that is the case study. Okay. So case study for today is on cycling in the city. We are talking of Delhi city, where the government and private bodies, they have collaborated to install these cycling stations, right? And these are e-cycle docking stations. All you got to have is a credit or debit card and register yourself through your phone. What happens through this is that the cycle is designated to you for a certain amount of time, say 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And you can take this cycle for a ride, a green ride. The cycle will also be equipped with a battery, so that you are not required to invest your energy. And this low cost bike transportation is one of the important ways in which urban commutation at the last mile can very easily happen, right? So this is where you can participate by writing these kind of case studies, right? Cycling in cities through very good innovative mechanisms, right? So this all not only saves fuel, this also is good for health, environment, right? All right. So Bhabani has said she would like to take the screenshots of the editorials. Why not? Absolutely. Just a bit. I will pass on to that place. All right. So take these 3 screenshots. This is the first editorial. All right, moving to the second one. Take the screenshot, and now this is the third one, right? It's good that you are taking these screenshots. You will not have to go through the editorials, right? Varied newspapers, we will cover them for you, the important ones. And but after taking screenshots, you have to ensure that this becomes your answer friendly. Answer friendly means you are able to utilize them in some or the other conversations. That is why I ask you to write them at a place, right? Don't make them a repository. All right, so I hope it is done, Bhabani, right? If you like this initiative, do shower some love on us through likes, comments, shares. Liking is just putting a thumbs up button, and we would love that for now, right? And quickly, in 2 minutes, we will again meet for the feature discussion on a very important topic. I have already presented some of the important graphs here so that you are able to understand what is happening in the emission gap report. All right, so let us quickly meet for the emission gap report by UNAP for today's feature in 2 minutes time. Thank you for watching.